What would you do if you had to leave your home overnight? What would you do if your land, or in fact even your identity, no longer belonged to you suddenly? Well, that was the reality of the partition of India in 1947. And this reality has been immortalized in literature called as partition literature. Partition literature isn't just about history. It's about human suffering, resilience, and survival. Writers from Saadat Hasan Manto to Amrita Pritam have captured the horrors of this time through their words. And as a result of which, it becomes an integral and the most important part of Indian English literature. If you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam, then you cannot afford to skip this topic. In today's video, we are going to break down the key themes of partition literature, some of the most important writers who have contributed to this literature, and how you can effectively study this topic for your UGC NET English exam. So make sure that you do take notes and stick till the end of this video, because this might be just the game changer for your preparation that you are looking for. Partition literature draws from and talks about the lived experiences of the people who have survived this event. Therefore, the works, they deal with a lot of brutality of the situation, the pain and loss of the affected people. One of the most prominent themes of partition literature is displacement and a loss of home. Millions were displaced from their places. They had to leave their homes, their lands, their identities overnight. And therefore, the works, they vividly capture the sense of ruthlessness where people had to become refugees overnight. But the trauma of partition didn't just end with migration. It continued to haunt the people for centuries. It almost made their survival impossible. The writers have portrayed this in their works in the form of characters who deal with a fractured sense of self, showcasing how partition didn't just talk about the physical divide, but it also talks about a mental and emotional one too. One of the primary reasons of this emotional and mental suffering was caused because of unimaginable violence that resulted from the riots. A lot of partition writers have represented this bloodshed and this lawlessness in their works, exposing the sheer brutality of the situation. But one of the darkest aspects of partition was the systematic violence against women. They weren't just caught in the chaos, but they were used as objects of revenge between communities. This led to innumerable abductions, killings, rapes, and forced conversions, leaving many women permanently scarred. Despite the many horrors, there were so many narratives in partition literature talking about women's resilience. One of the most important ones is Urvashi Bhattacharya's The Other Side of Silence. Bhattacharya's work documents the real-life testimonies of women who refuse to be just mere victims. It talks about how they fought for justice, how they challenged patriarchal norms, and how they rebuilt their lives. Urvashi Bhattacharya's work is just one of the many narratives of partition literature. Which are the other ones? Let's break them down right now in this video. The first writer that we are going to discuss in today's video is Saadat Hasan Manto. Manto was a Pakistani writer and a playwright who is considered to be one of the most fearless voices to emerge from the partition era. He strongly opposed partition, calling it an overwhelming tragedy that tore apart communities and humanity itself. Manto's most famous short stories, most critically acclaimed short stories, were published under this particular collection, which is Mottled Dawn. It was originally written in Urdu and then later translated into English by Khalid Hassan, making and leading his raw and unfiltered narratives reach wider audiences. One of his most iconic short stories is Toba Singh. Perhaps you might have heard of it or even read it. It is set in a mental asylum in Lahore where after the partition, the Hindu and the Muslim inmates are to be exchanged between India and Pakistan. The central character of the story is Bhisham Singh, who is also called as Toba Singh because he came from the village called as Toba, which is now in Pakistan, especially in the story. So what is happening is that he needs to be transferred from the mental asylum in Pakistan to the mental asylum in India, but he refuses to leave that particular mental asylum. And so towards the end, what happens is that he is left on this no man's land between India and Pakistan, and it's towards the end that he dies on that particular no man's land. Now, Manto wrote this story because he wanted to satirize partition. He wanted to showcase the futility, the absurdity of this particular division and how it comes at the human cost. Apart from Toba Tek Singh, Manto has also written other critically acclaimed short stories like Thanda Kosht, Kholdo, Cold Meat, and so many more. His short stories and his other works become a crucial read, especially if you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam, because in his works he has talked about the rawness of the partition experiences of the people, and because of that his works are frequently asked in this particular exam. The second most important writer that we are going to discuss in this video for their contributions to partition literature is Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh is an eminent Indian writer and he won the Padma Bhushan in 1974 for his contributions to Indian English literature. His most important novel is Train to Pakistan, that was published in 1956. It is considered to be the first major novel that deals with the themes of partition. Train to Pakistan is a historical novel and it is set in this fictional village of Mano Majra, which was at the border of India and Pakistan. Now, Khushwant Singh has presented this place, this village, to be extremely peaceful, where all the communities, including the Hindus, Muslims and the Sikhs, all of them, they coexisted very peacefully, especially before the chaos of partition. The entire novel is divided into 4 parts. The first part is dacoity, wherein the novel begins with the representation of robbery and murder, beginning with the tensions. The second part is called as Kalyug, wherein you see the tensions slowly rising amongst the communities and you see the communal mistrust building up. Third is the most important section of the novel, called as Mano Majra. Why it is called as the most important section? Because it is in this particular part where you see the arrival of the ghost trains. Why are they called as ghost trains? Because these trains, they are filled with corpses, and that sort of leads to full blown out violence. And the last part, which is the 4th part, is called as Karma, wherein you see the climax of the novel and you see Khushwant Singh questioning the bloodshed. He's talking, he's questioning humanity after all of this violence and sacrifice. Amidst all of this turmoil, this bloodshed and violence of the partition era, Khushwant Singh also interweaves a forbidden love story. The love story of Jugga, a Sikh dacoit, and Nuran, a Muslim girl. Now, they love each other, but unfortunately, they cannot be with each other because of all of these communal tensions. Be that as it may, the entire love story symbolizes hope and tragedy for the rest of the characters. All in all, Khushwant Singh's A Train to Pakistan is a crucial text, especially if you're preparing for your UGC NET English exam, because it is frequently asked. So make sure you understand the summary, the characters and the analysis of it, especially before you appear for your NET exam. The next writer that we are going to discuss in this video is Bhisham Sahni. He is a renowned Hindi writer and he was awarded with the Padma Bhushan in 1998. His most notable work on partition is Tamas, which actually means darkness or ignorance. It is a chilling depiction of the communal riots and violence that erupted as a result of partition. Now, Tamas was originally written in Hindi and then later translated into English by the author himself. It also won the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1975. The story follows the life of Nathu, who is a poor man from the Chamar community, and he is tricked into killing a pig for 5 rupees, having been told that it is for veterinary purposes. The next morning, he finds that this dead pig is found on the steps of a mosque, which leads to a series of reactions amongst the Muslim community wherein they slaughter a cow the next day. And all of this snowballs into a full-blown communal violence, mirroring the realities of the partition era. Nathu himself is killed towards the end, which also symbolizes the fact that it is always the countless victims who have to pay the price of such kind of communal violence. Tamas becomes one of the most powerful and relevant novels today because it talks about how hate can be easily manufactured, and it's always the marginalized who have to pay the price of such kind of political upheavals. In addition to all of these novels, one of the most epic novels on partition is Chaman Nahal's Azadi. In this particular novel, he has portrayed the pain of loss, migration, and displacement. He has talked about how the happiness of independence was overshadowed by the horrors of partition. Set in Sialkot, the novel follows the story of Lala Kanchiram, a grain merchant who had been living a very peaceful life with his wife Prabharani and his two children Madhubala and Arun. Now, as and when partition unfolds, overnight his shop is looted, his family is forced into a refugee camp, and he experiences the brutal realities of displacement. Similar to Khushwant Singh's A Train to Pakistan, Azadi also interweaves a love story between two people, that is Arun and Noor. Arun comes from a Hindu community and Noor comes from a Muslim community. Now, Noor asks Arun to basically convert to Islam so that they could be with each other, but then Arun refuses. So over here as well, you see this love story of two people who would want to be with each other because they love each other, but they cannot be because of the communal tensions. In addition to all of the things that we discussed up until now related to Azadi, there are two very interesting things that I would like to draw your attention to about this novel. The first is that despite all of this violence, pain and loss that Lala Kanchiram had to go through, he still developed a very optimistic, spiritual, philosophical and yogic vision towards the end. And the second most interesting thing that I find is the timeline. The novel begins with Lord Mountbatten's speech on June 3rd, 1947, announcing partition, and it ends with Mahatma Gandhi's assassination. Because of all of these reasons, I find Azadi to be a must-read for UGC NET aspirants because it provides a very powerful and an insightful lens into partition literature. And finally, one of the most important contributions made to partition literature was by Bapsi Sidhwa. Bapsi Sidhwa was a Pakistani novelist of Parsi heritage, and she offered a very unique perspective on partition through her novel Ice Candy Man. This particular novel is considered to be one of the very first partition novels written by a Pakistani female writer. And a Hindi film adaptation has also been made, which is titled as Earth 1947. Set in Lahore, the novel follows the life of Lenny, a 4-year-old girl, and it is basically from the perspective of Lenny that we understand the rising and the growing communal tensions that she observes with both innocence as well as curiosity. Lenny is brought up around this bunch of people. The first one is this beloved Hindu nanny called as Aya, and the second is this charming yet unpredictable Ice Candy Man. And there are again a lot of other people as well representing the diverse communities living in Lahore in the pre-partition era. But as and when partition unfolds, what we see is the rising tensions, communal violence, killings, rapes, abductions, and so many of the things happening in that particular time. One of the most gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching episodes is when Aya, who symbolized beauty and harmony before partition in this particular novel, is abducted, reminding the readers that how women's bodies were objectified in the partition, how they were treated as objects of revenge, how their bodies became the battlegrounds for the partition conflict. Unlike other partition novels, Bapsi Sidhwa's Ice Candy Man provides a deeply personal and intimate look into partition because it is told from the perspective of a child. making it a unique book to be studied both for history as well as literature. These are some of the most important works of partition literature. Apart from these, you can take into consideration Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, Urvashi Bhattacharya's The Other Side of Silence, and so many more. All of these writers have commonly dealt with the themes of pain, violence, loss, displacement, right? But remember one thing, that partition literature becomes an integral part of Indian English literature. So if you want to understand partition literature or Indian English literature for your UGC NET English exam, then you can check out my live courses for this particular exam. In my live courses, I am breaking down the history of British literature and Indian English literature in a very detailed and comprehensive manner. I am covering each and every literary period, followed by a detailed discussion on each and every author and their works, which will help you in tackling the chronology based questions. If you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam for June 2025, then now's the right time to sign up for my courses, because I'm not only covering the history of British literature and Indian English literature, but I'm also covering the literary theories in a very simplified and comprehensive manner. Starting from structuralism down to eco-criticism and queer theory, I am covering all the complex concepts and explaining them into simplified bits and pieces. Related to the theorists, I'm explaining all their major concepts which frequently appear in UGC NET English exam. The best part about these sessions, that these are live one-on-one sessions, which means that I can provide you personalized guidance tailored to your needs, requirements and schedule, trying to fill the possible gaps in your UGC NET English exam preparation. If you want to know more about the kind of courses I offer, the sessions I take, and the notes I provide, feel free to check out my Topmate page. It's topmate.io/Riya Gandhi. I've shared the link in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. That's it for today's video, folks. If you found this video on partition literature informative and helpful, please like it and share it with other UGC NET English aspirants as well. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you don't miss any content that I will be uploading related to UGC NET English exam in the future. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one.